This is not good. Not good at all. So last time out, I took the BD11 racing to the local club night. The track was maybe a little bit too tight for me and I clipped the barrier. Didn't think anything of it. Marshall pointed me back in the right direction. Power on, got to the next turn. No steering. And the end result was this. So my servo horn is still connected, but there's nothing there whatsoever. So obviously that was a DNF for me and a trip to Insideline Models. Now I couldn't get it sorted on the night, unfortunately, because it's not something anyone really carries with them. So what I've done basically is strip the gears in my servo, hence no steering. So how do we resolve this issue? Well, luckily for me, Paul at Insideline Models helped. And we've got one of these, a SAVOX gear kit. And today we're going to pop this back in that servo, and hopefully tonight we'll take this bad boy racing and see how we get on. So first thing that you want to do, grab yourself a 2mm driver, get this servo out the car. Take the horn off first, take the servo out, and then we can have a look. Unplug the servo from the receiver. Let's SAVOX servo and mount out. So the servo that I use is the SC-1251 MG. It's the black edition. I've got my servo gears. Let's move the car out of the way so we've got some room. So the first thing that we're going to want to do is remove our servo from the servo mount. So you might have 2, you might have 3, you might have 4 screws that go in. So the servo mount, I've got 2. Move our servo mount to one side. And all we're going to do, these 4 screws on the bottom, we're going to take them out and that'll expose the gearing inside for us. So once we've taken our servo screws or case screws out of the bottom of the servo, those long things there, set them to one side. We're going to open the servo case up. Pull the top off and that exposes our gears. Now before we start taking these gears apart, what you might want to do is take a photo so you know where each of the gears sit. Now on this, it appears like this gear here is damaged. So we could just take that one out and replace it. But because there's been an impact, what I'm going to do, I'm going to replace all the pins that come in the kit. And I'm going to replace all of the gears that sit inside it. So one by one, you just need to start taking these gears off. Set them to the side so you have an idea of the order that they go back in. Might need something a bit tougher to get that one out. There you go. Now the pins as well are different thicknesses, so take note of that when we're replacing the pins. Last gear here, I need to get some pliers on it, give it a bit of a wiggle, and there we go, that one comes out there. Now just be careful, can you see this band here? This is what keeps us dust proof and waterproof, so make sure you don't damage that. So that's where we're up to. Now what I'm going to do, I'm going to change these pins. I'm going to get my pack of pins. Like I said, they are different thicknesses, so just be aware that you're replacing them like for like. There we go. So now we've got our new servo pins in there. Now we'll take our new gears and we'll get them back on here. So the big one has like a rectangular pin that it sits on. So make sure you don't force it, make sure it's on properly. Put this one in. And now this is where, it should have been that way round. This is where, if you noticed, I took them off in a certain way. So that's replaced that. Now we've got this one here, which is replaced with that one. Should push down and make sure they mesh the gears. And we're going to go to this next post here. So we've done them two and that big one, and then we've got this new one and this new one on those sides. Move those out the way. There and there, so those two mesh. And as you can see now, all our gears are meshed together. Put your case back together. So that on there, make sure you've got that band that sits around the outside. 4 screws in the bottom of there. And 4, tighten these up diagonally. And now it's time to get this back on the servo mount. And we should be cooking with gas and get it back in the car. Now, while we've replaced the gears in the servo, we're going to change how our servo connects to the steering system. So previously, I've been using the standard servo horn, and I've been advised online by a few people and a few people down at our club to put a servo saver on. Now, I was always under the impression that servo saver increases the risk of sort of a sloppy servo, hence why I always went with a direct horn like this. However, if you're anything like me and do like that barrier, you probably do want a servo saver on there, because you don't want to have to do what we've just done every time you hit the barrier and you end up stripping your servos. So this is the servo saver that we're going to use. It's the extra stiff servo saver from Xray. So we've got our main bit here, and all we do is start with the smallest of these springs, if you will, and we go smallest to largest. Three on. Final one on like that. We then take this piece here, clip that in. So we'll pop that last piece in there over the top. These 3 different parts here are to go onto the servo with different fittings. And then for me, I use a SAVOX servo, which is the same as a Futaba servo. So I'm looking for the one with the F on, which is that one. That's gonna push inside there like that. And that is our servo saver. It will then push onto our servo. And now, you can see it working there. It stops us from stripping those gears. It's time to get this in the car. So before we hook the servo up, take the ball stud out of the old arm, pop it into the new servo saver. Once we've moved the ball stud over, grab yourself your transmitter and a battery, turn it all on, make sure your trim is central. It's time to put our servo saver on, straighten everything up, and get this car on some gauges before we go racing. Guys, do all that good stuff for me. Like, share, subscribe. If you want to see a video on cheap setup gauges, check this one out, and I'll see you over there.